We have Jeff Johnson here today talking about his experiences in the industry. He happens to be one of the top industry leaders in Utah, and so we're going to dive in a little bit deeper and talk about experience. How did you get started? We'll start with that. How did you get started?
It's a long story. I'll keep it short because that'll be a discussion itself. But I started as an actor, and I helped the casting director. At the time, he did a lot of live auditions, and so I helped the cast as a reader. I had no idea I was learning how to be a casting director, and I did that for a couple of years. And basically, she moved out of state, and this producer didn't like any of the other casting directors in town, and he had seen me work throughout this, and I had been doing PA work and camera work and everything else at that point. And he called me up. I was 23, and he said, "Do you want to cast my next movie?" And I was young enough and dumb enough to say yes at that point. And it just kind of started from there. It happened to be that company made like 12 films back to back to back, and then other people started calling me, and I just, eventually I moved out to LA, and I thought I was just going to be assistant out there. And my first movie out there, I got a call from a producer I'd kind of known in Utah. Mm-hmm. She's like, "Why do you want to be the assistant? I want you to cast the thing." And it was a Dennis Quaid movie he was directing. So it just kind of snowballed from there, and I kept going and kept going. But most of my work has been based out of Utah. Even when I was living in LA, I was working more here. So I finally just moved back from LA and stayed here.
You grew up here?
I grew up here, yeah. I'm a local Utah.
Wow, that's what amazes me is your age at starting that. No. How much responsibility that is.
At the time, like I said, I was young enough and dumb enough to say yes, because now I look at it, I probably would have said no if I would have known everything that you had to deal with. So, yeah.
Well, that takes passion. That takes getting up and after you fall down quite a few times.
Yeah, and I did. I made mistakes. I mean, first few times casting, there were some rough patches for sure.
Well,
and there always is. The productions, I mean, it's like anything in life. Nothing's perfect. I mean, you're dealing with a production. It doesn't matter if it's a $100 million production or if it's a $100,000 production. Stuff's going to happen, and you got to kind of go with the flow and figure out how to fix it. So that's the hardest thing to learn when you're in your 20s is mistakes can happen, and you don't have to be perfect. You just have to make sure you clean it all up and make sure it works.
Yeah, and then it shifts into what? Learning, growing, and then you just don't really care what other people think. You just do it.
You kind of just understand you got to do it.
Yeah,
you're going to get criticisms either way.
Yeah, you're always going to be in that.
There's always going to be, especially in this kind of business. In an art form, there's always going to be people that love it and hate it. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter. So there are people who don't necessarily agree with my choices, but I get paid to do it, so as long as they're paying me to do it, I'll keep doing it. So.
You're the expert in it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you're doing it. Yeah. Well, let's go back a little further. You originally started acting.
Yeah.
How did you get the bug for that, and how did that come about?
High school. It was over a girl. She wanted me to be in the play because.
The truth.
So it was literally because I had a crush on a girl.
Oh, yeah. What play was it?
It was The Music Man.
Oh.
So, yeah. So I got into it and I got the bug a little bit then. But I never at that point even realized I could work in film permanently as a career. So I did a bunch of plays back then and I got a really bad agent that ripped me off at one point and finally got in with a decent agent that actually helped me and I kind of worked my way in that way and started acting. It was fun.
What was it like to be on film? What was it like to see yourself larger than life? And what was that? What does that feel?
I like it. Like I said, my dream wasn't necessarily just to be an actor. I love acting and I love actors, but my dream was more just to work in film. Mm-hmm. So I don't actually like to watch myself on film. I really don't even like to be in front of cameras. It's interesting. I like to act and I like to play the character and I like to tell the story. I just don't necessarily like to watch myself. So it's a little bit. Yeah, it makes me nervous every time I watch myself.
It does?
Yeah.
Well, we're glad to know that that's still the case.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about actors.
Yeah.
You cast. How many actors do you think you do and you cast and look at? We were talking.
On a project or in a year or what?
Like maybe let's just say one project on an average, like a medium-sized project.
So, if we keep we kind of have some standard rules that we try to keep. They're breakable, but like we try to bring in at the most 20 to 30 people per role. So we'll do a normal film will have like 25 speaking roles on it, 25 principal roles on it that we cast. And so if you do 20 people, you're looking at 500 tapes for sure at that point.
That's a lot.
And usually we usually there's reasons why we add more. And so it's usually more around 700 for 25 roles. So
That's a lot of viewing.
It's a lot of watching tape, but and that's narrowed down from everybody else who's submitted, which our submissions as far as photos go will be in the thousands. So that it's a hard deal sometimes when we're sitting there going, who's the right people to bring in, and we have to narrow it down because you can't see we can't see 2,000 people for a show. So
What are some of the most important things that you look for that stand out?
First off, confidence, but it's the ability to tell a story as an actor. Understand what an actor does. A lot of beginning actors don't understand what the actor's job is. A lot of actors are still worried about getting the job when they're auditioning. And you got to take it as if you already had the job. You're doing the job. An audition is different than a job interview. If you go into a job interview, you're sitting down, you're saying, "Hey, I want this job," and then they ask you some questions and they get to know you and to see if they can work with you. In an audition, you're actually doing the job. It's like, okay, it would be like if you walked in and said, "Okay, now do the job." And so telling the story of that character for that script is the main thing, the absolute main thing. So do your job and know what your job is. And that takes time, that takes taking classes, that takes getting on set, that takes, work to get to that point where you understand what the job is.
Do you automatically know when you see a tape, oh, this is the person, or
It becomes a feel thing. When you get down to the final top 4 or 5 people, they're all good. Every one of them is really good. But usually there's 1 or 2 that just have a better feel for that character, just the way they played it. It's a gut thing. It's like, well, that's better feel for this, But at that point, if there's 5 or 6 people in the callbacks, they're all good, and every one of them could play it. And if they're not, then I'm not doing my job right. So, but yeah, they're all good. Usually the top 15, 20 people we bring in are all good. That's the thing, is what we bring them in and they're already good. So if you're a beginner, it's tough to break into getting into the room, back in the day it would be a live room, but now it's getting into our, we're going to let you self-tape thing.
So self-tape is challenging, but it also opens up a door of freedom for people to also do other things. It kind of gives them the time to do it on
There's
the off
good
time.
and bad. The self-tape is really good because it's more convenient for the actor, because they don't have to they don't have to take the day off, drive down to my office, wait in line, come in, and they have 2 or 3 shots at it, and then they have to leave, because that's the only time we'd have. We have 5, maybe 7 minutes with each actor, right?
Yeah.
And if we have to get 100 people through a door in a live audition, it takes that much time. But they do also have, I'd be there and my associate would be there, so if there was something we could tweak, we could do it at that time. So there is benefit to that.
Yes.
And we get to know someone a little bit better. But then the self-tape, though, the actor can work that day, can go home at night, shoot their scene, or can shoot it over the weekend, or whenever it's convenient for them in order to get it in. And they can shoot as many takes as they want and just pick the top take they want. Now, I always wondered, this is me as a casting director being paranoid going, I wonder how many takes they took to get that.
A lot?
Yeah.
Because people are so critical.
Yeah, and that's where it gets weird, where we have to worry about that. So what happens now is we have to get to know the actors through the self-tapes. And so, we watch how professional each one of their self-tapes is. Not professionally done, but how professional they are with doing the job as an actor. Mm-hmm. And did they do what we asked? Did they follow all the directions? So a lot of that is what we're vetting at that point to try to get to know whether or not this actor's going to be okay on set. It's harder for newer actors now. It's not easier. It's harder for them to get in the door. It's harder for them to get discovered, because we don't want to take that risk so much, because we haven't met that person in person. We haven't actually got to know them. So
why wouldn't you take the risk?
Yeah, well, because if you've got 10 other people who are good for the role, why take the risk putting them on set? So that's why you kind of, to get into like the bigger projects, the bigger SAG projects, the Kevin Costners, the Yellowstones, you know, we want to trust that actor. Once they're on set, they're going to be able to deal with all that pressure and with the fame. You're dealing with famous actors. You're dealing with, you know.
Yeah.
So we have to do this, you know, vetting of it to make sure that they're going to be okay. So and it's not to say we don't hire brand new actors, because we do, but it just takes time.
What could a brand new actor do in order to get experience?
Well, film shorts. Almost every one of the universities in Utah have a film program, and they're always shooting shorts and film and student films. Do that. Do plays. Take some acting classes. You know, just do things that keep you working. You know, actors are always working on their craft. The ones that work all the time, they're always working on it. They're always improving. They're always trying something new. Well, acting's something. It's kind of more the study of life than it is the study of just acting. Mm-hmm. You can take 25,000 different types of classes to teach you different process and different things. But what you need to do is figure out what you want to do. If you want to do accents, learn some accents. If you want to do, you know, as an actor, what do you want to explore next? What kind of characters? What kind of things? Always thinking about, you know, what are you good at? What aren't you good at? Take risks and try out for parts that you're not good at, like in a play or a film short, because it might be something where you're able to develop that.
Yeah,
you know,
expand
it. Adding tools to your acting experience. You know, if you're good at mimesis, great. If you're not, great. If you don't know what that is, find out what that is. You know, those kind of things. Study other actors, study acting coaches. You know, study films. Study local commercials. You want to work in this market. There's a lot more commercials than there is film and television. You want to work in this market. Look at the commercials that are made here. Study them and find out, okay, that's the field they're looking for. Oh, I get that, you know. You're doing a purple mattress commercial, you definitely know that it's a little crazy, a little out there. So you know what you've got to do as a storyteller. So become a student of the work is probably the best way to do it. And always be a student. Some of the best actors I know, they've been acting for 40 years, and they're still studying it. They're still learning more. So.
Why do you think that most people look at film and television, or acting in general?
Yeah.
Why do they look at it as though they can just step right into it without doing the work? That's the thing that fascinates me.
I think we all have that. I think everybody, I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we all think, you know, you watch these people on screen and like, oh, I could do that. Mm-hmm. And they don't realize that it took 20 years for that actor to get to that point to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think it's, a lot of us do that where, well, we could do that. But the process of doing it and then actually getting in front of the lights with the makeup, with hundreds of crew members, with everybody in a hurry, with them handing you changes to your sides, like that moment, like, hey, we're going to change this, this, and this. And you being able to click that in, make your choices, figure out how that is going to be played, and add it together so it all makes sense. It's a big responsibility. Telling that story, for even if it's a day play, telling the story is a big deal. It's somebody put it once. A producer I worked with, she's actually a pretty big producer. She put it once. She's like, you can have a really good script, but if you have bad acting, it's bad. You can have an average script, but you have good acting, it's good. Mm-hmm. And if you have a good script with good acting, it's excellent.
Yeah.
And that's it's always about those times. You want good actors. Nobody wants actors to bomb at all. So that's why once you're on set, they cater to you. They put you into trailers. They do everything because they want you to be as comfortable as possible to be able to do your process. And it's a hard process. I mean, it's not the easiest thing for someone to show emotion or to things like that, to share how they would do things. I mean, just imagine just having to share the fact that you're going to, in a movie, go, kill somebody. You have to play it. It's a moment you have to live as if it was real.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, So.
Well, those are good things to talk about. What about, let's talk about Utah for a moment, and let's share with us, what are some of the most amazing projects you've worked with here? Let's talk about those first.
Wow, there's so many amazing projects, and I will definitely wouldn't be able to list them all because I've been really lucky. I mean, I've got to work. My first big thing that blew up was High School Musical. I mean, everybody thought it was a movie of the week for Disney Channel, and it blew up to be huge. That was the for years I was the High School Musical casting director. That was huge. But then I was able to do Yellowstone. I did Hereditary. I've worked on some really cool independent projects. There's one show called 9 Days that I just loved. It was just the premise of the show was so cool. It was a Brazilian director. It was really cool. I did 1923. I've done, even some of the smaller TV series. I've just been really lucky to be able to work, and so there's quite a few.
Most people don't know that about Utah. They always think that it's filmed somewhere else, but
Yeah.
Utah
A lot
is
of times,
great.
they come here to film and to make it look like somewhere else because it's because they don't want to and a lot of it has to do with tax incentives, and a lot of it has to do with locations and availability of crew and professional crew members and professional actors, things like that.
So, and you're the president. Talk a little bit about.
So I am the
what
president of the Motion Picture Association of Utah. We are a volunteer group. We're basically lobbyists, and we're a lobbying group. We hire lobbyists to go up on the Hill and fight for tax incentives. It's a tax rebate program that Utah has, where we try to get more tax rebates for films and television so that they can get more work here. In the industry now, there's 75 countries and 35 states, the last I looked, that have tax. That could have gone up or down a little bit, but 35 states and 75 countries that have incentives to have films come to their countries or their states. And so
That's a lot.
yeah, it's a lot. We in the 90s. So what happened in the 90s? Utah was really even busier than it is now, and what happened was Canada started sucking away our work because they started making a tax incentive. And they started slowly taking our work. All the movies of the week started to go up to Canada. Back then we did a ton of movies of the week and things like that. And then finally in 2001, Kyle Mallory and Katie Sine decided that we needed to do something about it in the state. And they basically founded the Motion Picture Association of Utah. And they brought in some people and started the group and started fighting for tax incentives. And we've slowly been able to get the work back, and we're building, and we've got a lot more to do. But we're getting there. Yeah.
So how can just a normal person assist with that? What can they do?
Well, if you want to see more movies being made in Utah, talk to your legislators. Let them know. Hey, we want to see more movies being made here. Well, we like that. That's the big thing. Is just our legislators. Our legislation is really good, and they're very conservative, and they want to make sure they spend the tax money that they get the right way. So if you want to see more movies and understand that it's a rebate program, so all the money has to be spent in Utah on Utah. So it doesn't incentivize anybody that comes out of LA. It incentivizes the people who are hired here, the goods and services that are paid for here. And so anything that is used and paid for here, they get a 25%. They can get up to 25% of a tax return of basically money back. So if you spend $1 million, you can get $250,000 back.
Which is
But it doesn't
incentive.
get back to them until after they spent the money. So they've already spent the money in the state before they even get that. So it's actually kind of cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Well, so
What else do we want to talk about?
there's a lot of things.
Oh, you could go for hours. That's the thing. I know. I'm like,
And we've had so many conversations. I'm like, I want to make sure I get the right one. So what do you see for Utah in the next, 2 to 3 years?
So with this year, it goes back to tax incentives as far as bigger projects. This year we have a sunset clause to the rural. We have a rural tax rebate program where we had $12 million for the last 2 years, each year. That the sunset clause comes into effect this year. So if we don't get that sunset clause taken off, we're going to lose $12 million of incentive to bring films in. So that will really affect us. So we're hoping to get that off this year. And it's looking pretty good. I think we're going to have the votes and keep this as an ongoing program and build off of that. And then we're going to have to actually eventually raise the money in that fund and things like that. But right now, that's what we're doing. But it should be, if we get the sunset clause taken off, we should be pretty busy. We should stay pretty busy. The state should be pretty busy.
Well, that adds to the economy.
Oh yeah, big time. And rural, like Grand County and Moab and and Washington County, they really benefit from it. All these counties, these smaller counties benefit. Tooele County, so many things are shot at the salt flats, and it benefits them so much. So yeah.
What do you think the average crew size is?
Boy,
It's probably a lot of employment throughout the
when
year.
you're doing a show like Yellowstone, you're talking 300-400 people.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and that's just crew. You've still got the vendors that are selling things, this to that. So it's pretty big. It's pretty big, and it could even get bigger than that.
So what's a day in a life for Jeff?
Well, if I'm working on a project, pretty much get up. We have my associate and I have a meeting every morning, talk about what we got to get done that day, and talk about what projects, what's due, and what we have to watch, like what tapes we have to watch. Kind of program out our day to see the timing wise as far as going through all that. Then we usually have an afternoon meeting to wrap it all up and show and put it all together for our clients and send it all out. But it's a lot of watching tape. It's a lot of breaking and reading scripts. I read so many scripts. I have friends that always want me to read their scripts, and I'm like, well, I can get to it in like 3 weeks, maybe 4.
How long does it take you to read like a?
I can read a regular page script, like a normal page script. I can read it in about. I can speed read it and get the casting stuff I need in about an hour.
Wow,
But
that's pretty.
but when I get then I have to reread it to get the details. So we can get the start of it, but then you have to go back through it. So but it's important because you have to understand the story you're trying to tell. So as a casting director, you have to read the script.
So and then what's the next process after you do that?
Well, booking, we call you guys and start saying, hey, we want so and so, and But so we'll send out a breakdown. Basically, we'll break out the script. I'll read the script, break out each character that we need to cast. And when I mean character, it's not just speaking roles. It's anybody that has any kind of performance. It's somebody that has to do something that's important for the film, right? It's not the guy walking to the back.
All those pieces.
I pick out all those pieces. And then we basically get some notes from the director on hopefully each character. Sometimes they don't have. A lot of times they don't. They haven't thought of nurse number 2 or police number 1 at all, So we'll put out a breakdown of the feel for the script and what they're looking for, and then we start getting pictures in, and we start picking pictures of who we want to see for each role, and then we start getting tapes in, and we start watching tapes. So it's a process. It takes a few weeks to get all these tapes in, because sometimes it's funny because it'll take a few days just to get the breakdown done, because sometimes you're like you have to wait for the meeting or they have a rewrite coming, or they're cutting out 3 characters, or they're adding 4 characters, or they're so there's a process. It always changes. So we could be in the middle of getting the breakdown out, and it has happened before. I worked on a TV series. I won't tell you which TV series. We were cast. We had the first 3 episodes cast, and the creator of the show came in, and he did not like those scripts at all. And he called me up. And he says, "We're starting from scratch." He sent me 3 scripts. 3 scripts. 24 hours later, he wrote 3 scripts in 24 hours and sent me these scripts, and then we cast that in like 2 days. Wow. I had to, because that was the only way we're going to get it done. So those times, those were you got 5 hours of sleep, maybe a night type of days. That's you have to fly, and at that point you're narrowing it down a lot. You're just saying, we can't waste time with anybody. We literally are like, who would be the best people for these roles? So that's where the experience comes in. Absolutely. Is we can move it fast. My quickest I've ever had to cast somebody is I got a call at 4:00 in the afternoon. Something had happened to an actress, and I had a replacement actor by 5:30 to them. So an hour and a half delay.
That's fast.
And it was a leading role on a pilot. So it was a big deal.
That is a big deal. That's where you have to really know the market and who you've been auditioning.
Yep.
And when they stand out,
and who's doing good work, and who's and who feels right for the part. It's always about knowing what the script needs, knowing what the director needs and the script needs, and so like when they called me up, I knew exactly who the role was. I didn't have to go look it up. I knew what the role was. I knew all right, who can do this, and I started making phone calls of who was available.
And that's expertise too, because what's cool about that is you really have to use your imagination and also your intuition and your pull. Like you have to think outside the box. You can't just read the script and go, oh, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, no.
You've got to come up with that, right? You create the character.
And a lot of times we're waiting for the actors to show us what it is. We're not. Most of the time it's about allowing the actor to show us what the character is. A lot of times the director hasn't gotten to the point where they know all these characters and know how they should play it. And most directors want to see the actor do their job and show them how to play the character. Like a lot of times, I've had writer directors that wrote the script and they come in and someone played it totally different than they ever thought, and they fall in love with it. That's the way to play this character, and they'll even rewrite the scenes to play it that way. So casting is a creative process. It's not. They're writing scripts and they're casting at the same time, and it's always movable. Films are always movable. This is why actors are like, I got booked within it was 24 hours before I worked. And it's because we just got the script and said you were still in the movie. So that kind of stuff happens all the time. So
I think that's very interesting because how it evolves.
yeah, it's always evolving.
It's really, and one little piece adds and changes the direction.
Absolutely.
In like 5 minutes or less. That's pretty interesting.
And you're dealing with that on a day-to-day basis. So you never know. I mean, it's funny when we're on projects, it's like sometimes we're doing nothing and then we have the days pretty slow. We have maybe a couple tapes to watch, and all of a sudden we'll get a phone call and it's like our day just went from, we might have an 8-hour day to, we have a 14-hour day and we got to get this done.
There's a fire in the house.
Yep, and we got to fix it, and it flips like that fast. So it's fun though. I like it,
Well, you like that intensity.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
you're a problem solver. You like to create the
there's a new thing happening all the time. If it's not a new script, it's a new project, or if it's a new wrinkle in what's happening on this project, or there's always something to deal with. So people are always like, why are you so calm when everybody else is panicked? And I'm like, well, because I've been doing this for so long. I'm so used to this, It's like, we'll get it done. We gotta figure out how to do it. Yeah.
Well, you have that inner knowing as far as what's coming, and you're also working with that and the unexpected.
Yeah.
And you're making both of those.
Very rarely do I get thrown. There have been a couple times I've been thrown. And I have no idea how to fix this, but let's figure it out. But, but very rarely. It's mostly just changes in script. It changes in the direction that the studio or the director want to go. And it's like quick changes that way. That really is that's what you deal with mostly. But
you ever cast the wrong person?
I have once.
What was that like?
I literally cast the wrong person. It was the director called me up and said, "This isn't who I picked." On the day, it was a big time director, and I'm like, "This is who I got on the notes." And we back through the notes, and it was some assistant had given me the wrong name, and so we paid the guy, and then I got the other guy out there. Luckily, the other guy was still available, but the director, he wasn't mad. He was a really cool director. He's like, "This wasn't the guy I picked." He called me really nice, really humble guy, and he was like, so it's not who I picked for this role. And I'm like, what? And it was just a mix-up. It was a mix-up by an assistant because we had gotten the right name and booked the wrong. So it was the wrong person, but it was like, yeah.
Well, you're seeing so many people too. It's amazing that you have only had one.
Oh,
I would think that there would be.
I have a whole process that I've designed to try to keep track of all this stuff because you have to. I mean, we have notes on everything. We'll have notes on we know everybody that's come in, every tape, every note that we've got from a director, everything. We keep it all so that we can go back to it if we have to. Because it's really easy to get lost when all this stuff starts happening, and all of a sudden you make a mistake. And that's what I learned from the beginning when I started when I was young. It's really easy to mess this up, and so you have to kind of learn how to not do that.
Well, you deal with a lot of unique personalities too, and directors and strong personalities.
Oh yeah.
One thing I wanted to bring up and ask you about was you put a quote on your Facebook a while back.
Okay.
It wasn't a while back, but the man in the arena.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite quote. I love that quote.
That's one of my favorites also because in our industry, how much does that impact us, and how does that relate?
Well, I mean, to me, as an actor, you're going to get criticisms. As a director, you're going to get criticism. Just making a film, you'll get criticisms about it. No, it's an art form. It's not perfect, and so a lot of people will sit up back there and tell you, "Oh, you're a terrible actor," or "Oh, you're not ready," or But in the end, I admire the actor that's in there trying to do it. They may not be ready, they may not be up to par yet, but they're at least doing it. Yeah. A lot of people say they want to act and they never really pursue it. And then there's a lot of people who kind of pursue it. And then there's those people who really pursue it. And it's a passion. I mean, being an actor is not easy. It's a hard job. and all we ever see is the famous people that get catered to and make tons of money. But when you're in the trenches auditioning all the time and working hard, you have to respect that actor because they're doing everything they can to do the best job they can, and they don't get paid that much. And they don't, in the end, if you average it out, they don't get paid that much with all the So it's the famous people do, but so I kind of look at it that way. It's you can't be afraid. You're going to get criticized. You're going to get rejected. You're going to have things told to you that people didn't like you or like your project or like the movie you're in or whatever. But you have to do the best you can with what you got.
Yeah.
This, and stand in the arena and do it and understand that those things are going to happen. But and even come me, I mean, I'm the biggest one. I have to cut these people. I have to tell them. Yeah, I have to basically. It's going to only one person's going to get that role. And I'm seeing 20 people per role. I'm cutting 19 people. So I'm making one person happy and 19 people not.
What does that feel like?
Sometimes it's a really hard deal. Sometimes if you're down to the top 5, I'm going to send over the top 5 to the director. And getting to the top 5 is mind-boggling hard because you've got 8 people you really love. Mm-hmm. And you can't send that many because it's just too many people for the director to go through. You don't want to your director has tons of work. You're trying to take work away from them, not give them work. And so it's hard. Sometimes the cuts are really, really difficult. And sometimes we're down to who feels better for the role. Because at that point, they're all good actors. It's just a matter of like, who feels better? Who do I recommend over this person because the role fits them better? And it could boil down to we're looking at the mom and we're casting the son and there's just the one kid is just a little bit more blonder than the other kid, so let's send this kid. I mean, and that's literally what it gets down to. Very, very tiny, minute things that an actor doesn't have any control over. Like literally, an actor wouldn't know, has no control over, and no. But it gets into that, and it's hard. And as a casting director, you second guess yourself a lot. You're like, ooh, should I have so and so read for this role? Well, they were really good for this role too. That kind of stuff. So yeah. But luckily, in the casting process, a lot of that is overcome with the callbacks and with seeing people and bringing them back in for other things. So there's a lot of redos and rethings and stuff in that process. That's what's great about it. It's a creative process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always about being able to come from your gut.
Yeah.
Because you've been doing it so long, but also be open to.
Yeah. It's professionalism. There are rules to how you have to do it.
Right.
But there's also thinking outside of the box. A lot of times my job is to think, a lot of movies are like, well, you read the script and you're like, well, wait, there's no reason why a woman can't play this role. Or there's no reason why, and it's written for a man. And so you bring that to the director. You bring that, hey, we could have a really great actress that should read for this role. Or have a really, So those are things that we deal with all the time is, the script constrains you somewhat, but you also have to be willing to talk to a director and say, what about not doing exactly what this is? Maybe this plays better, and being creative that way. So that's always fun too.
That's a lot of input to shift.
Yeah.
Right? And you could change a whole perspective.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it won't work. I mean, sometimes the feel won't work right if you try to change something like that. But a lot of times there's no reason you can't do it. There's no reason at all.
What's the most rewarding thing in your job?
I actually love watching the movies and the shows later. Like it took me, I'll usually wait 2 years after I've cast something before I watch it, and it's just because I'm still too ingrained in what it had to be and how hard it was to find the certain roles. But when I finally get to watch it, and just as an audience member, as somebody watching to enjoy it, and it's good. I mean, I just love that, and watching the actors grow, seeing actors that have been working on their craft for years, and they get this really cool part, and it's like that's really cool to watch, and I love doing that.
That is pretty inspiring.
I mean, because a lot of them work. I mean, I've seen some of these actors in the state work for 30 years, and they're working hard at their craft, and they have moments they're booking, and then all of a sudden something clicks, and they're booking a lot, and it's like so it's a cool process to watch.
What would you tell somebody that is, say they're starting out and they send in 100 tapes, but they really have a passion for it, they just don't get selected? And is that a typical thing?
Well, they say you're doing well if you if you get called back or get a booking off of 5% of all your auditions, so you're doing well. So if you got 5 of those out of those 100, you're doing okay. You know, and don't get discouraged. It takes time. It takes
does.
time. Every project you do builds into another project. So, yeah.
So what's next for Jeff?
I'm taking holidays off. It looks like this is the first time since COVID that my office has nothing on our board, which is kind of nice.
For
Yeah.
a week or maybe.
Well, it's been
you
one
think
day,
today.
so it's been one day so far. So
Yeah, today.
that was today. And then you know, I know we have stuff pending coming in. It's not here yet, and so we'll just take some time off, spend time with my fam.
Are you going anywhere?
No, my family's all here. My parents still live here, so I'll spend some time with my family. And then, and then just get back to it. Always trying to improve it. Always trying to make it better or more organized, trying to keep it going.
Well,
Then the legislation session will happen, and I'll have to be there for that too.
so you're going to be here for a bit to
Yeah, I'll be here.
really
I might
plug
take
into
I
that.
might take a week and go somewhere or something. You never know. So,
Well, thank you, Jeff.
thank you.